What is freedom? Is it a way of life, an expression, a soft breeze, a slow, long drive without interruption? Is it laughter without fear of judgment, adventure without limits, play without inhibition? Eleuthera, the isle called freedom, its people, its youth, have been hopeful for freedom for generations. Eleuthera, today, is a perfect environment for Bahamian culture to grow and thrive. Freedom. Yeah, that's what it is. In 2020, the world changed. It changed and rapidly adapted to the coronavirus pandemic at a scale very few small countries could keep pace with. Sleepy, quiet towns, such as Tarpon Bay, Eleuthera, were no exception to this. Beginning with school shutdowns, education ceased altogether. But with the motivation to learn, virtual classrooms became a new normal for the youth of Eleuthera and the Bahamas overall. Imagine the freedom you knew, walking to school with views of the bayfront, openly enjoying recess without care or caution. All just gone in moments. The resilience of young Bahamians has been more radiant than ever through the pandemic. Virtual learning still presides today for most schools. Luckily, there are a few schools that have opened back up in person, with the recommended precautions, of course. Mrs. Culmer, an educator by profession, embodies her purpose to its full potential. She has made an impressive impact on hundreds of students from multiple schools. In speaking with her, she highlights so many vital points of growth that would be beneficial to education in the Bahamas. Namely, the importance of young Bahamians experiencing their culture and understanding their history.
So from a very small child, I always wanted to teach. Now, as I went to high school, I fell in love with two subjects, maths and Spanish. Right. I feel as though in Nassau, you have so many students to deal with, and in my training, we really trained with high school. But when I came here, I was placed in the primary school, so I had to revamp everything I had learned in college. But over here, I taught both primary school and high school. It was kind of similar, just that here the class sizes seem to be much smaller, and the primary school students are more into learning the language than the high school students. Once a student knows that a teacher really cares about them, they will try their best in education. If you have a teacher who doesn't care and you're not well in the subject area, you would tend to shy away from it. But knowing that somebody is there pushing you and trying to motivate you and trying to help you, oh wow, the children will go above and beyond to do what they can do. For instance, I had a child right here in Tarpon Bay. The child wasn't a very good student. But I always spoke to this child. I always motivated him. And anywhere he saw me, he would, Miss Cooper, my favorite teacher. I was taking a group of students to play basketball a few years ago, and he was working at the airport. And when he saw me, he dropped all the suitcases and he ran to me and he hugged me. Miss Cooper, my favorite teacher. And the students was like, wow, you really inspired that child, because he seems as though he really loves you. And it's fulfilling when you can see students come back to you and say thank you. Yeah. Parents need to instill in kids that they can be independent, that they can accomplish anything they want to. And once that starts from there, it goes on to the church. The churches can push the kids. The teachers can push the kids. And they can realize, listen, I have something here. I could be a great fisherman. I could build stuff. I could learn stuff. I could use what I've learned in school to make things for people, to sell them, to make my own money, to become an entrepreneur for myself. And that is very, very important, and it is lacking here. And probably on all the other islands as well. My son is 9 years old. And my son always tells me, Mommy, I'm going to be a businessman. I'm going to own my own business. I'm going to open my own business in Staniel Key, Exuma. Well, my family's from Staniel Key, but he always says that, and he is 9 years old. So once you instill these things in kids from they are young, they can realize that, listen, I don't have to be working for this person for so long. I can branch out on my own. I could learn what I could learn and become something really, really great in this world. I think Bahamians are used to being spoon-fed. And once that happens, they are not independent. They're always depending on something or someone else. But once we can have somebody to come in and, I guess, speak to the young people, to inspire them, to motivate them, then something can spark in their imagination to say, listen, I can do something with my life. I can go fishing. I can go farming. I can make my own money. I think a lot of times, too, kids go online. And they just go online to do all sorts of things. Yeah. They can find all these things out online. Search. If you're interested in going to college, you could put in the college, you could look it up and, okay, I'm interested in taking up this field, I'm interested in taking up that field. Wonder what they have to offer. And so it shouldn't solely be dependent on guidance counselors, like you say. We could have people come and do career training, like you said, as well. So I'm not going to say the government should do this, but private entities can come in as well and help assist young people.
In their culture.
Oh, they have to know where they came from. Most definitely. How are you going to teach the future generations where you come from? Now, Tarpon Bay here. It's full of culture. The all-time Junkanoo champions. And, I remember helping the kids and teaching them how to paste their own pants. Letting them help, not just wearing the costumes and all those things, as well as students, they're embracing the type of food that they eat, the type of music that they sing and listen to. And so it could be more with the culture in the Bahamas. But I'm glad to know that here, the students already embrace their culture. Going back to where you come from, it's very, very vital, very, very important. And then, as I say, for the future generations, you can teach them about their culture. And it's very, very important to do that, to know where you came from, okay? Because if you don't know where you came from, what can you tell your kids? What can you tell people you meet all over the world? And I've met persons all over the world, and I did Junkanoo beatings for them, and I do all kinds of things. And they just love me. You understand? But if you don't know anything about yourself and your background, then there's nothing you can basically do. You probably go to the States and live there and try to say you're from the States. Find out, learn about the States in school and say, okay, I'm from here, I did this, I did that. But you can't say anything about home, so it's a real problem if you can't do that. There's so many young people having kids, and so they haven't learned so much, so they can't teach their kids, and then their parents are the ones taking care of the kids, and they're tired, so they can't really teach them too much. Like you say, immersing yourself, like going in there teaching them how to knead bread and teaching them how to bottle tomatoes, and all those things. I don't know how to bottle tomatoes. My family's from Staniel Key, Exuma. My grandmother, Lane Gray Cooper, she is the sister of Raleigh Gray. I'm sure a lot of people know about Raleigh Gray. This one for Raleigh Gray, did it this way. My granduncle. And so as a small child, I went to Staniel Key every summer. And I was telling my mother the other day, I said, Mommy, I just remember so many pigs being in Staniel Key when I was small. She said she doesn't remember it. It's my father who's from there. And I said, but you know how the pigs got on the beach where they call the swimming pigs, right? No. I said, well, it became so overwhelming, they decided to put the pigs there on the beach. And now it's the biggest tourist attraction ever. But if I have never went to Staniel Key, my roots, I wouldn't have known the story. You understand? And they're good with boating and sailing, and all my uncles, my cousins, they sail. And so I'm trying to get my son into sailing, but he doesn't want to do it. Your great-grandfather, they lift rocks from there to build his porch, right? To fill in his porch. The kids, like you say, they so used to just pay and do. But if you teach them to work, they would learn how to appreciate what they have. I'm going to speak on this. I feel as though the Haitian kids are at a disadvantage. I've worked with a lot of them, and They're well behaved, well mannered, talented, gifted, but because they don't have documentation, when they finish school, that's just it for them. And there are a few I'm still trying to help at this point right now because I see so much in them. I'm talking about valedictorians who can't go to college. So I mean, for me, that hurts my heart because there's nothing we can actually do to help them unless they have documentation. You know, there are so many, I want to talk about athletes. Oh, jeez. We have so many athletes here, but we just need more opportunities for the kids, especially on these islands, because some of these children could be Olympians here. I could tell you, I have a former student, I really know he can do the decathlon, and I'm working on that right now. It's so much that they can do, but it's just that they need somebody to push them. And I'm not in the sporting arena, so I just go to my contacts and say, here's so and so, what can you do to help them, you know, and this and that. That's what I try to do. That's the only thing I can really do. And look up online and see, you know, if anything is available for them. But I was just saying that I'm going to try record some stuff, but you know, there's COVID. You know, try record them, participate in doing different things, and send them off to colleges for the students. You can accomplish whatever you put your mind to. Don't give up. Try and try again. You will not succeed every time, but you're going to try and you could push. And guess what? Whatever you want to do, it can be done through Christ. And once you have that vision, you write that vision down that you have for your life. And you can achieve anything once you believe.
Business in the Bahamas. Is it more than just offshore banking, foreign-owned resorts, tourism, and fisheries? What can the young Bahamian today look forward to as an entrepreneur? Where can they be inspired? Taking a page from Cachet Knowles on the importance of family, culture, homegrown niche business, and language. Not only language, dialect. Cachet, an Eleuthera native, is our expert on growing a business that supports and preserves our culture. Hey Cachet, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
So, we had the most beautiful shot of your grandmother. So my first question is going to be, how did your grandmother impact your decision to begin Eyes of Bahamian Bay?
Okay. So my grandma, I call her grandma, she didn't directly impact my decision to start Eyes of Bahamian Bay. Unfortunately, she wasn't around when I started it. I started it, I think, a year after she passed, which is really sad. But she was very influential in, I guess, things that I appreciate about the Bahamas and about the ethics and the values to do with Eyes of Bahamian Bay. So she taught me a lot of skills that I use today through Eyes of Bahamian Bay.
Absolutely. And I guess that leads to my next question of, what is the importance of knowing your family history, experiencing it firsthand, spending time with elders in your family, living in Eleuthera? What's the importance of that to your personal growth and your business?
I feel like that helps with, I guess, my identity as a Bahamian, as an entrepreneur, and just sort of everything that helps me navigate through the Eyes of Bahamian Bay brand. I remember I spent a lot of time with Grandma, and she would tell me these stories over and over and over again about like how it was for her growing up and how difficult it was for her and her 14 brothers and sisters. They had a really big family and definitely struggled, which taught me the importance of hard work. She was a very hard-working and strong woman, and I think I admired, all that she was able to accomplish from so little to a lot. Like, she did a lot with her life and her time, and she taught me about knowing where you come from and, being, I guess, strong with your identity. I don't know if that's the right, use of words, but, knowing who you are will, help keep you grounded.
I would say definitely kind of independence through your culture, right?
Yeah.
And maybe even in the feminine way, Bahamians would say biggity.
Right. Oh my gosh, Grandma was such a biggity woman. Like anyone who met her, you either liked her. No, I lie. You either loved her or you did not really gravitate towards her. But she told her truth. She was very honest, very hard, but caring and very giving, under the table giving. Like it wasn't until she passed that we found out how many people she just gave to, without really letting anyone know what she was doing. But very biggity and bossy, and I know everything and you know you don't know nothing, so listen and learn.
So, even in talking about the word biggity, why or how is Bahamian language and culture important? Have you seen a positive response from customers? Do you get a lot of questions? Have you seen an
Right.
impact in just really from your business and how you use our language and dialect?
So I think language is like extremely important, especially in our culture, because it's the way that we communicate, and it's our tongue. And I think that our language isn't empowered very much. I remember growing up by grandma and my family being corrected for my grandma and corrected for my word usage. And I always was very rebellious in that, well, if this is the way that I talk, why should I change it to be considered like intelligent or proper? Like it just never added up to me. And I think now that I've come around full circle in like appreciating our language and recognizing that as a kid, I wish that our language was more empowered and validated. I think it's like really cool that I'm able to use like that knowledge of going abroad to school and realizing that I literally spoke a different language. And I feel like people should be more educated about the way we speak and more empowered to speak it in especially professional settings. And I feel like people are like actually curious, like in our store specifically. My mom is always like, she doesn't understand that people actually like tourists buy my merch, because it's like you don't even know what velmatic thread means, so why are you buying a shirt? And it's just like, because culture is important and rich, and people appreciate knowing like a little bit more about the Bahamas than just sun, sand, and sea. And our identity, I feel like if we can empower the way we speak more, we would have a better understanding of what it means to be Bahamian. Because I think that's the idea of not wanting to speak Bahamian in the first place. You're diluting what it means to be Bahamian and saying that that's not good enough.
And I think that there's a direct connection of that is what really makes us special. That's, our identity as Bahamians needs to be preserved. And, we can move forward as a country. We can build up businesses, and that leads to really my next question of why is it pertinent to develop Bahamian-owned businesses and Bahamian-operated businesses? That's another key word.
Right. It's so crazy because that's something that's definitely very near and dear to my heart. I remember working at Atlantis in 2015. And I just remember, like, I was really young, but I remember being in the cafeteria, and that's like the place where like everyone in the whole like hotel came to eat lunch. But I just remember looking around the room and like seeing the different professions that were around. There were like the butlers, the maids, the bartenders, the waiters, people who were in accounting, like HR. Everyone was there, like sitting with each other. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, at some point or another, each one of these people had a dream of what they wanted to do when they grew up. And somewhere along the way, like, something didn't work out, and the only thing that is available or that they could access is to just get a job, because you need to have money. And I feel like we're very job centric, and I understand the importance of people working and having money, but I think there should be a bigger emphasis on people being in control of the way that they make money. And I think encouraging people to have their own something, anything, like ownership, a actual career, their own business, I think creates pride in who you are and what you're doing, but also gives you a sense of like just ownership in this country, which we don't really have much of.
No, I definitely agree. And Bahamians are so resourceful and creative and
talented.
Beyond measure. Beyond measure. It's been proven time and time again. And I think brands such as your own is a way to inspire us and remind us of what makes us special. You started Eyes of Bahamian Bay from the ground up. What were some of the barriers that you encountered, or what was the greatest barrier that you encountered when, starting Eyes of Bahamian Bay?
Really good question. Makes me reflect. But I think the thing that I struggled with from the time that I started Eyes of Bahamian Bay till now, like I'm still, this is still a huge barrier for me, is that I get in my own way. And when I say that, what I mean is that I am the thing that either holds me back or propels me forward. And a lot of times it takes a lot to be propelled forward, especially if you're someone who is constantly thinking, am I saying the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? I think women in general are not empowered to be confident in their ability and what they're good at, especially as a creative like myself. We're constantly wondering, am I being too loud? Am I being too vocal? Am I too biggity? And I think when I started Eyes of Bahamian Bay, I actually kept my identity a secret because I knew that the message that I was trying to get across, I wasn't sure if the message that I was trying to get across would be the right message coming from myself. Because I had so much, like, the platform grew so fast, faster than I could build up confidence in it as like an actual woman, as an actual person behind it, as a Bahamian. Like it made me wonder, like, am I Bahamian enough to be carrying this brand? And I think till this day, like, I still struggle with saying, like, okay, Gashay, like, you clearly done a good job up until this point. People like to hear from you, say more. And a lot of times I'm like, no.
We tend to get a little, as we would say, parry.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We get paranoid. And I think that you're an awesome example of how that can truly become a success story.
Right.
Once you get out of your own way.
Right. When I do it, I'm like, yeah, like that was nice. I felt good, like speaking from a place of truth. It takes a lot,
Well, I can't wait to see what comes next because you've done an amazing job, and really you are an awesome, authentically Bahamian success story.
Aww.
But that being said, I know for closing, is there, and I think you mentioned it, is there a poem that you had from your grandmother that you wanted to recite, or something that you had written?
Dear Bahamian with a dream, you know that fire you feel in your chest, that vision you see in your mind, your heart racing when you talk about something you love? It makes you both scared and electric at the same time. We could call that passion, and I can need you to follow that with every ounce of praise and thanksgiving in your Grammy heart, because that could lead you to purpose. And when you find your purpose, well, that's when those impactful, inspiring moments are made, and you become that idea, that vision, that moment that inspires the next Bahamian and a dream.
Sovereignty and ownership in the most important way possible. Eleuthera, the island which pioneered industrial agriculture in the Bahamas. How has she fared? This important topic deserves an equally important Bahamian expert, a community legend and an honorable man, Mr. Dion DaCosta Gibson, or lovingly known as Gibby the Farmer.
Gibby,
Hey, Kate.
good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Enjoying this breeze out here.
It's lovely.
Blessed man with this beautiful view.
Give thanks to my grandfather.
Oh, that's the best thing you could do.
Now,
Tell me a little bit about your journey through education and really getting into agriculture. What made Gibby the Farmer?
so it really all started when I was in grade 11 or 12.
Mm-hmm.
We did a work study. I always wanted to be a vet. Loved animals. Always had pets, fish, turtles, birds, everything. Used to volunteer at the vet office on Saturdays. And in grade 12, I did a work study for 1 week with the then chief veterinary officer for the Ministry of Agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
Told me to meet him down at the government farm,
Okay.
where we went and we dealt with pigs, goats, cows, sheep. And I realized that, dealing with animals is more than just taking care of
That's
them.
right.
But then I saw a need, being the nationalist that I am to a degree, that we need food. And I figured what better way to marry the two and start dealing with animals to feed us as opposed to just taking care of them for pets and whatnot, which
That's
is kind
right.
of selfish as well.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the pigs were what really got me into it. I always tell people pigs are the reason I am in agriculture
Really?
today. Yeah.
Why specifically pigs?
Because the pigs were the most memorable part of it. I mean, if you've seen a full-grown sow, they could be about 5.5, 6 feet
Massive.
long, 2.5 feet wide, and there's a pen of them, maybe about 15 in the pen, and the vet jumps in. It's about 50-something years old at the time, and he's like, "You got to jump in and give them a shot." I was like, "One or all?"
I know you wasn't for that.
But I watched him do it, so I was like, "Ain't no way this old man could beat me."
Uh-oh.
And so I saw it, and he gave me the needle, filled the syringe, everything, and I jumped in, stuck it, and jumped out before that one could turn around and bite me. And I think it might have been the thrill of it, but it just really, really moved me at that time.
So what really brought you to Eleuthera? I know you've journeyed through the Bahamas and even some other Caribbean islands. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I did started my tertiary education at COB,
Okay.
not UB, COB. Did a year there, and then I got an opportunity to go to Cuba
Awesome.
to study agronomy,
Right.
which is not really the avenue I wanted to take in agriculture, but it was an opportunity nonetheless. So I went over there, worked on that, spent 3.5 years there, and then I came back home, ended up, spent I think about a year and a half, 2 years at home working at Atlantis in the aquarium.
Okay.
And then from there I went to Vermont, Sterling College, a small school called Sterling College, where I took up sustainable agriculture.
Awesome.
My love-hate relationship with institutionalized education
I know.
did not allow that to last too long. So then I came home with this grand plan, came to this exact spot where we are when I kind of made the decision that I wasn't going back. I said, I'm coming home to start a farm.
Right.
My parents said, what the hell are you talking about? Didn't quite start that way, but it was cool. We had our riff-raff with not, what are you doing in life and all that, you focus kind of thing. And I started to do backyard gardens while I was working in the hotel again, but this time I was in more like VIP services, but I had to be involved in what my passion was. I couldn't be, at that point I was already known as Gibby the Farmer.
Right.
You can't be Gibby the Farmer and work in front desk in a hotel. So I had to get myself out there, start doing backyard gardens again, which then like speaking engagements and stuff. I'm in Toastmasters, and so a lot of my speeches were based around food security and agriculture. So I kept myself known and relevant as Gibby the farmer.
Right.
But I definitely, at that point, I got a call from, through a speech that I did, someone contacted a small restaurant who had their own farm in Abaco.
Mm-hmm.
And the lady called me, we did a phone interview, um, and I didn't even go over to see the place. And I just was like, I'll take the job.
Yep.
I was, what, 26, and I was like, time to get out of the nest, man. You know, I was tired of being home. I have great parents, but they can be a little overbearing sometimes.
Boy, that's all of us.
I guess that's Bahamian parents, you
Yes.
know. And I went over there, took a leap. It was different, you know, being completely on my own, no parental support. Matter of fact, at times having to help them with my little brother and sister, which I took great pride in. Um, that didn't last too long because I was warned about the employer, and they're like, oh, you know, they're funny people to work for. But shortly after that, you know, I got an offer from Baker's Bay to go there and start their farm,
That's right.
and did that, which I think was something that really, really cemented, not to other people, but for me. It
Right.
showed me what I was capable of.
Uh-huh.
You know, I listened to a quote, or I take to heart the quote from Richard Branson. If you don't know what to do, take the job anyway and learn while you're doing
That's
it.
right.
I was definitely not fully qualified for that job, but I know I had to take it. That was my time to shine. And so I took the job. I mean, I met 5 acres of bush, you know, and by the time I left them, there was a fully operational farm, greenhouse, chickens, bees,
Everything.
fruit orchard, and then, as we all know, Dorian happened,
Yep.
which I'm a proud survivor, but it's still a soft spot, I think, for everyone, those who
Absolutely.
were there and those who weren't there. Um,
Those who had family there.
yep,
We
yeah,
all felt it
yeah.
very much.
I mean, I think my family and friends were very mad at me because I didn't want to leave right after the storm. I was trying to stay and help, and they're like, "Get your, you know what, out of that island,
Uh-huh.
come home." You know, they were trying to send me to family in the States to decompress. I was like, I'm fine, you know. Um, and then at that point, you know, ironically, shortly before Dorian, I had a conversation with my grandmother, and I was like, you know, Mom, I think it's time to move somewhere else.
All right.
She's like, what do you think? And I said, I want to go to another family island. I want to try to make an impact, help another island. And she asked me, well, both her parents being from Abaco, I felt kind of like I was giving back to
To that
a part of
community.
me. Um, and then Eleuthera was always top of my list. Grew up
Why?
coming here. Grew up coming here. My grandfather's family is from Governor's Harbor and Cupid's Key.
Awesome.
So grew up coming here as a child. Always had an attachment and affinity to this island, and I just felt like I was looking for job opportunities. At one point, I had 4 different options, um, and it became a waiting game. And then it was like, all right, this one came, and I took it. And yeah, so that's what's got me here now. Agricultural manager at the Wanalutha Foundation, um, and just trying to do my part to improve their farm as well as help other farmers while I'm here. You know, teach them what I've learned over the years, and impart and try to make an impact on our food security. You know.
Well, you've made it clear you're a very practical man, and you like to learn through practice and experience, and there's a place for everything, including education. I think you've really kind of starred in terms of seeing what was applicable to the islands and connecting with the people there in the community. Seems you have a good read on Eleuthera, the community, and maybe where this island could go. We went from being extremely abundant, being the one of the first places in the Western world to export produce, can it, and export pineapples to Europe.
Yep.
We had our big dairy farms, and now that's quite dwindled. What do you think, or where do you think we can make changes, small or big? Going back to food security, because I know that's something you're passionate about. That's really important.
Yeah, food security is definitely very important to me, and I think when we think of food security, like I'll define it, right? Because I think you can't have a conversation without defining it. And food security says definition provided by the WHO says when all people at all times have access to sufficient, safe, nutritious food to support a healthy and active life. Now, we have access to food, but all people don't have access
That's
to
right.
food. I always tell people there's not a shortage of food in the world. The distribution is unfair
That's right.
because of wealth gaps, all these different things. Um, and when you have food in your country that you're producing right here to feed your own people, to me, I don't care about exporting. Exporting
right.
is your surplus, which is great if we get back there,
Yep.
you know. But I think that we really need to focus on producing food, producing good quality food. We as a country have changed our diet so much
Boy.
based on what we see on TV, and we cook to please the tourists, and then we adapt to that diet. You know, one thing I love about living on the family island, there's no fast food.
That's right.
My fast food is someone's grandma, and if I want it fast, I better call her while on the drive and hope that it's warm by the time I reach. You know,
You know it will be though.
yeah, and if you gotta wait, it's worth the wait.
Always.
You know, but I think that we definitely need to, focus. And as a people, I always say that it's a PPP, private-public partnership, and private not meaning private sector, and public not meaning government, because private and public is me and you.
That's
We
right.
are private and we are public. We are the people and we are the private sector. But we do need the private sector, the food stores,
That's right.
the restaurants, the hotels. Then the government needs to support, give a little bit more support. We need greater subsidies. I mean, fine, we can bring in things duty free, but that's not sufficient. When you still got to pay VAT on stuff, you still got to pay the freight and shipping. I'm not asking them to give you everything, you know. And then you need us, the consumer, and myself included, because I don't produce everything that I eat.
That's right.
You know, I still have to go elsewhere for different things, but as a consumer, we have to think local.
That's right.
One thing I learned so much of being in Cuba and Vermont, Cuba is a locavore by necessity. They don't have a choice.
That's right.
But in Vermont, they promote eating local. You know, it's a trend now to go to farmers markets. But I don't think, like, during COVID, I got a million calls to talk here, to do this, to do that. And I'm like, as soon as COVID is over, none of you are going to be gardening anymore. It's a fad. It's a trend, you know. But it needs not be a trend. It needs to be everyday
agree.
life, you know. And I really think that until everyone, from the less fortunate straight up to the wealthiest person, I'd rather go and buy a cut of fresh pork. As much as I might enjoy a wagyu or a nice sirloin, nothing's gonna taste better than that fresh pork. You know, do our farmers need to improve some of their skills and the way their methods? Definitely, but that cannot happen. I cannot invest more in my farm if I don't get the support and I'm not making the money to even keep me alive
That's
right
right.
now.
I think a big problem is food security hasn't been treated like a priority at all. I think the message hasn't been received that that should be a priority, especially with, look at what just happened with COVID. What happens with Dorian? What happens even, you think the southern Bahamas, if a storm comes and lasts a week and a half and the boats can't come through, what are they left with?
Yep.
It's something to really think about. Now, I think the other kind of thing to think about is really, how do we get people interested or pulled into agriculture and farming? Have you seen an interest in the youth here at all? What has been kind of the reception from the community?
I think with the produce that I sell and deal with down at the One Eleuthera Foundation, we are not able to meet the demand of all of our clients.
Right.
So there is a demand, there is a desire. The restaurants, I mean, I had a restaurant hit me up and say, man, this is the best quality stuff I ever had. Like, I don't even know why we go to the food store. Can you please produce more? And so there is a desire, there's a want. People will cry that, oh, it's expensive. But one, as a farmer, you have to know the quality of your product. You know what you're selling, so you don't ever sell yourself short. But at the same time, the customer has to realize that you can go to the food store and buy something cheaper. But as a coworker and I was just talking about, kale has so much vitamin C, calcium, and all these different things. But the minute you cut it, it loses 20% of that. The longer it sits on the shelf, the longer it sits in that
That's
trailer,
right.
it loses more and more. So the thing is, you can either pay more now or
Or
pay
more
more later,
later.
you know. And so I think we truly need an overall education of the masses, not just to say you have to buy local because it's going to help our economy, but you have to buy local because it's going to help you, it's going to benefit you
Long term.
long term. I mean, if we can't feed ourselves and be independent in terms of at least 80% of our food needs, then who are we fooling? I mean, and I think right now there's a trend of everyone wants to get into farming because, they see the need for it. But does everyone understand the science of agriculture? Does everyone understand the business of it?
The commitment
Some may
of
own
it.
some may understand the business while others understand the science. But there's no real marriage of the two between everybody. Then the policy side of it. You know, if I could import eggs at 10% duty, but I know that I produce eggs right now and we sell them at $6 a dozen. They're cage free, not organic. And that's the same thing they're selling from the food stores for the same quality product. But people will have a harder time coming to me as a young man and purchasing that. And be like, oh, you should be cheaper than that. Why should I be cheaper?
That's right.
Because you didn't have the shippers far? Well, I can't compete with a farm that's producing 10 million eggs an
That's
hour.
right.
And so it's a huge picture that I wish everyone would
Get on the same page.
understand, and I mean there's not enough time to talk about all that, but hopefully one day we get there.
I think so. What would you say is maybe the first step? Like just the first initial step to at least starting that conversation?
Um, I think we need to remove our reliance on the government.
Okay.
I'm not anti-government. I'm not completely anti-establishment, but I also believe that we as Bahamians have this super, super strong sense of entitlement.
I
Like
agree.
somebody over something. Big man, ain't nobody owe you nothing. Real talk. I mean, I come from a family that's pretty well off, but at the same time, that came from somewhere,
That's right.
you know, and to know the struggle that people had to get to where we are. Yes, I may be sitting in the shade of someone else's tree, but someone had to put in that work. And if I don't take care of the tree or plant more trees, the next generation will be right back to where it started. I don't know if you saw this meme going around. The founder of Dubai spoke about how he drives in a Mercedes. His son drives a Land Rover, but his father rode a camel. His grandfather rode a camel. He said, but my grandchildren and my great grandchildren will be back on camels again. Tough
That's
times make
powerful.
strong men. Strong men make better situations. Better situations make weak men, and weak men make dumb decisions. And that's what he said of his own family, of where he sees it going. And if you look at it now, Dubai is actually plateaued and in some ways going down. I think maybe we were there, but it's time for us to get back up and start growing our own food, man.
How do you think maybe Bahamians coming home and experiencing their culture and their history, like, talking about you appreciate what your ancestors, your grandparents, your great grandparents did for you, just like I did. I visited, my family's from Tarpon Bay. I visited 2-3 times a year minimum, usually at month intervals. And I stayed in a house that my great uncle built with his hands. And I knew their situation. I see where we are today, and it kind of sparks a passion in me to give back. Do you think that's something that maybe Bahamians need to do, is get more in touch with their history and their culture?
100%. Now, I tell you, and I often say this among my friends, we are part of 15%. Not only in terms of being fortunate, but everything starts at home.
That's right.
I may come from a family of nation builders, but I wouldn't care if nobody taught me to care. I wouldn't care about my country if I wasn't taught to care about my country.
Right.
You know, And I think exposure, I know I had a conversation the other day, we need to go further than Miami and Atlanta. You know, the world is so much bigger. Having lived in Cuba, I mean, you look at the people who, yeah, they suffer to an extent, but their basic needs are met for the most part. Now things are a lot worse than when I was there, but you still saw happy people who make the most, who have national pride. They're proud to be Cuban. They may hate the government, but they're proud to be Cuban, And I think for me, I go everywhere. I wave the Bahamian flag. I have it tattooed on my body because of my national pride. But that pride came from somewhere. If you're not taught that, you won't have it. And we have, I mean, this may be a touchy topic, but we have a situation where we have maybe one or two generations right now that are foreign parented, born in the Bahamas, but identify with a country that they've never even been to. More than they identify with the one they live in. We suffer culturally. I literally was thinking today, like as I was waiting for you guys to pull up, I was literally thinking how I want to write an article about the appropriation of other people's food. We appropriate Chinese food. We appropriate jerk. And it ain't even real jerk what we do.
I know.
We appropriate so much stuff. When the tourists want that conch salad, they want the conch fritters. They want boiled fish, which is the most Bahamian of all of our meals. If you go and check out
some of the original Bahamian meals,
exactly,
not what we
if you
eat
check
now.
on Netflix, there's this show called High on the Hog, which takes us back to, our African for the Afro-Bahamian community where we get our diet from. I always say like sheep tongue. Where sheep tongue come from? That was the offers that you was left with, pig feet. But we made it our own, and I even learned that should be eaten cold. Originally it was eaten cold, not as a soup as we do, But until we get back to that, I asked my grandmother, this is funny, she grew up kind of good for her generation, but I asked her, I said, Mama, did you eat, dasheen and edo and cassava? She's like, no, we didn't eat much root crops, But that is what we used to eat. That's why Usain Bolt is so fast and our runners are right behind him but not there.
That's right.
That may sound funny, but your power and your strength is in your food. Those ground crops are what grow well here. Rice don't grow here. Why are we eating so much of it?
Old school Bahamian food was cabbage, pap cake, fish.
Guinea corn.
Yep.
You listen to Ronnie Butler song, guinea corn, hominy and lard, stew fish and Johnny cake. I mean, that's who we are, and until we could get back there, it may sound funny to someone, it may sound far-fetched, but I enjoy a nice pizza or something like that every now and then, but, I love my fried fish. Give me some Jack's fried dry where I could just bite all the head and everything,
Honey pepper and lime.
And so until we could get back there and really identify, because a lot of Bahamians can't even tell a tourist. I mean, you watch My 5 Cents. People don't know what the national fish is. People don't know the Prime Minister full name. I mean, these are issues that seem frivolous and minuscule, but it's a serious thing, and until nothing's going to improve until we develop that true sense of national pride. I mean, look at this.
Ain't nothing like
I don't
it.
go in the water every day, but I definitely come out there and look at it every day. I say, thank you, Lord. Especially having lived in other places, you appreciate where you come from. But, and that's why exposure is a serious thing. But I mean, everyone won't always have that. But at the same time, we got to kind of just try to, those of us who can, come back and reach one and work with each other, man.
Right.
I always try to bring people along. That's one thing I learned in life. Someone bless you, you got to pass it on. Bring someone along with you. And that person will be able to go back and bring someone with them. And that's the only way we can get better.
And you've been doing a lot of this in your communities, even in small ways, being so open and receptive to speaking to us and, showing us your bees and explaining everything so thoroughly. You're clearly a part of the community. And tell me what you're saying your tattoo.
Ubuntu. I am because we are.
It's powerful.
It's I can't remember the group of people in Southern Africa. I want to say the Zulu That's Southern African, Swahili, that kind of grouping down there. Um, and it literally translated means I am because we are. I cannot exist if you don't. We all have a
Right.
role to play in this ecosystem called life. The Lion King calls it the circle of life. You know, until we all find our role in society, I know what my role is. I know my battle. My battle is agriculture and food security. I can't fight poverty. I can't fight tourism or whatever or improve that because that's not my place. But we all need to find our niche, and when we each find our niche, and we just work together step by step. Like I like to say, we don't have to agree on everything, but we have to agree on the common goal.
That's
And
right.
once that agreement is there, we're moving forward.
Yeah, you have vision, you have a focus. That's definitely the dream right now. I think something what you said that was pretty powerful is just really knowing your purpose. And I think that needs to be a driving goal for a lot of young people. Everybody. Everybody. Even there are older persons who still need to find their purpose and know what that is. To feel self pride, national pride, pride in your community, and know how to contribute
Yep.
and partner with each other. No, that's awesome. Gibby, we talked about food security, but we've also, on a personal level, talked about food sovereignty. Can you tell me the difference between those and why it's important to know?
Um, so food security is when everybody has food, safe, nutritious food at all times to support a healthy and active life. Food sovereignty is just like as simple as it sounds. To be sovereign means that you stand on your own, everything is yours. So food sovereignty speaks about the Bahamas being able to produce our own food, being able to supply our own food. Um, COVID showed a lot of countries, not just the Bahamas, that they weren't food sovereign. Um, there was a point where like exports in the U.S. and I don't know if it's a political move or imports rather. Sorry, um, an African nation was sending all of their beef to the U.S. and U.S. cattle farmers were destroying their meat. Um, but that African country no longer had beef to feed their people. And so we have to know where our food comes from. And knowing your food doesn't mean knowing which store it comes from, whatever. Isn't it better to go down the road and see that pig being raised for your pork chop that we love, or pig feet, or you know, um, and so with food sovereignty, it's just simply being in control of our food and not being able to buy food, being able to produce your food and say that our food is ours. A U.S. president once said, I don't know that, I think Thomas Jefferson, agriculture not only gives a nation riches, but riches that she can call her own. You got your food, you got everything you need. Food is the basis of life, man.
I think we also forget that we're an island nation. So most of our exports and, well, imports are very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
The slightest change could affect how much food we have. It's a big deal. And in saying that, what's really the future plans for Gibby the Farmer? Big vision, immediate vision.
So my brain is all over the place all the time. I would, for me, while I want my own farm to produce food to sell, I also see myself being that consultant or farm developer for other people,
Awesome.
trying to guide them as best I know and learning along the way as everything you learn in life. Um, but yeah, just being able to assist other people get into the industry, do it on a sustainable, scalable level. Often we try to start too big or we start too small. We don't really scale it. So I think, for me, that's my biggest goal. I do have some agro-tourism aspirations that I think, may happen sooner rather than later. Who knows? But at the same time, for me, I really want to get into that farm development, helping people to build our food production capacity, not just to say me doing it myself. I think I can make a greater impact farming people rather than the actual food.
That's powerful, Gibby. So in saying that, have you had any experiences with young aspiring farmers, persons interested in agriculture? Would you have any words for for those young people?
Yeah, over the years, I've come in contact with persons younger than myself, persons in set with myself, even people older than myself who want to get into it. And, I just try to help them stay focused, realize that it ain't about you. I always believe in order to do well in things, remove self. And when you see that purpose, as we spoke about earlier, your purpose in the greater picture, and you see where you fit in and how what you're doing is making a difference, then it becomes so much more than just a job. And I think one word that I would tell anyone wanting to get into it, old or young, do your research. Agriculture is a very, very large industry with so many different areas. You don't have to play in dirt. You don't have to jump in a cage with 15 pigs and give one a needle and get out before you get mauled. You can be in a lab and be working in agriculture. You can be processing food. We have a lot of wasted produce in the Bahamas that needs to be processed. Ketchup, jams, jellies, all of that is agriculture and farming. Agricultural economics, we need people to tell us the numbers, and so just find your place in that big world that is agriculture.
And make it happen.
All right. Well, we've reviewed a lot of information, a lot of history, a lot of inspirational things. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Is there anything that would sum up everything we've discussed?
I mean, I go back to Ubuntu, man. That's my philosophy in life, I'm a church goer, but I consider myself more spiritual, I remove religion and try to be in this world with everyone else, right, and live in peace and harmony. And I think that when we are able to do that, I spoke about farming people. Like, I literally think of agriculture as more than just farming crops. We have to cultivate each other, and if, that would be my last words. Like, let's all see how we can help each other. Let's build each other. Let's sow into each other. And if you see someone who is buried, put some fertilizer on them so when they pop up out that dirt, they be like the Chinese bamboo. Takes 5 years to come up, but when it comes up, it grows a foot a year.
And don't
stop.
That's what I'm talking about. I'll cheers you to that. And we'll go check the water.
Salud.
Now it's time to show you how important food is and should be to Bahamians.
I remember when things were better back then. You didn't have to worry at all about locking your door. Everyone was like your neighbor. Take care of your son and your daughter. We had no best.
Yeah, so boiled fish is probably like the most Bahamian meal that there is, simply because when settlers first came here, slavery, all of that, fish was always abundant and available. And my Jamaican friends, they refer to it as fish tea. Bahamians will consider other things our national dish, but that, as simple as it is the essence of a Bahamian meal right there. Flavors, the fish, everything.
Perfect. So we are eating stew fish today, which is one of my favorite meals. I've been eating this since I could remember myself. It is a roux-based sauce with usually fried fish meat. Usually Bahamians use whole fish, not so much the fillet. Lots of pepper, thyme. We eat it with lime and either Johnny cake or grits. It's so yummy.
No stew fish for me.
Yes, sir.
Whenever I eating stew fish or boiled fish, I gotta have my Johnny cake. The dish is not complete without Johnny cake. So Johnny cake you could just dip into the sauce, like so. I usually save this for last. When I have the gravy, that's when I save it for last. Gotta have my Johnny cake.
This is my favorite dish. I could eat this every day.
What is it?
Stew fish.
Oh, okay. I've been here 5-6 days, and that's the best Bahamian meal I've had so far. Oh, I don't even remember the name.
Buccaneers.
Buccaneers.
Buccaneer Club, Governor Chamba.
Club, yeah. was dope. We had some sauce, right?
Boiled fish.
Boiled fish. Is that
Fish.
that's not?
You had boiled fish.
I had boiled fish.
Yeah.
And you had sauce, right?
Stew fish.
Stew fish.
I had stew fish, right? Stew fish with the Johnny cake and the gravy. That's where it's at. My second favorite was mackerel and grits, right? It was very nice. It was good.
Shout out to who?
It was good. Shout out to Kate. Good job. But yeah, it was good. It was light. It was clean. Pepper sauce is fire, literally. So, yeah.
Get me wood from the bush to make me tea and eat my bread till I fill my belly. Then I get ready to go outside and play. Get my friends from next door to run with me to the store to get some salt beef and flour for mama to cook.
Bahamians always know how to eat, drink, and be merry, laughing as loud as we can with libations in hand.
How you doing? Hey, well now, how you doing? We going with my road, we down with my road, going down with my road, we gon' live nobody.
To the place always known for its sun, sand, and sea, may you become a womb for the rebirth of our youth, culture, and spirit, a home to our legacy and ingenuity, a place of opportunity and abundance, loving all that you are, all that you have been, and all that you will be. Eleuthera, the island called freedom, may we answer your call to home.
Hey, we all gotta live, so we should learn to give. Come on, take that mess from off the wall. Give that baby back his ball.
Leave other people things alone. There's other ways to get involved. Get involved, get involved.
Don't be no fool, stay in school. Yes, man, let your mind become a tool.
Just were meant for fools to be locked away from society.
Get involved. Come on, y'all. Get involved, get involved.
Get involved, get involved.
They got a way to get involved. Get involved, get involved. Let's go. Come on. Oh, yeah. Look here. We gotta be there for each other.